Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So those who don't know me, I'm Martin Brocklehurst. I'm the chair of the Citizen Science Global Partnership. I'm also a founding member of the European Citizen Science Association. And I also took a role in helping form Citizen Science Africa. So I've been around a bit, as you can tell. I'm going to hand over to Ram to start the proceedings. So over to Ram.
Hello, everyone. Do we have Nuria online? Can you please hear us?
Hi, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I request the technical team to please show the teams on the screen. So we also have quite a few people who are joining us online. We would like to welcome them as well. Okay, wonderful. So thank you, everyone. I think we have more than 30-40 people who are joining us online, and we have a lot of people here. So first of all, I would like to welcome you all. Thank you very much for taking out time and joining for this session. So my name is Dayal Vaishnav. I'm Education Director at CitizenScience.Asia. And today we are going to talk about citizen science. And we are doing this Green Room event on behalf of European Citizen Science Association and Citizen Science Global Partnership. The Citizen Science Global Partnership is a unique collaboration of world's leading regional and national citizen science associations and their members. To advance global sustainability efforts, CSGP aims to foster citizen science partnership and initiatives at all scales across regional, particularly where support is most needed. So we have the Australian Citizen Science Association, Citizen Science Asia, European Citizen Science Association, CitSci Africa Association. We have RECAP from the Latin America and Southern America region, and we have Association for Advancing the Participatory Science. So these are the 6 regional associations which were the initial partners in the Citizen Science Global Partnership, along with few other organizations. So today in this Green Room event, we are going to talk about various citizen science related aspects. On all the 3 triple climate crisis issues, we have something for you. So for the biodiversity, we have Nairobi Biodiversity Challenge, which you can see a poster right over there. You can scan the QR code and we'll talk about that. For the air quality, we have Nuria joining us. So she will be talking about the air quality related activities which you are doing. So you can see the poster for the air quality here, and you can read about Citizen Science Global Partnership on the poster here. And then we are also going to have some specific and really interesting announcement from the climate change mitigation. So Martin is going to talk about that, and there's a poster there. We have also provided you certain leaflets and some cards. So those are the ones which you can use and refer for the information which are providing you here. One small housekeeping announcement. Please note that the coffee is not allowed in the room. So requesting everyone to please support on the housekeeping from the UNEP. Okay, so with that, I would like to give a brief introduction about the flow of the event. So first, I would like to, we have 6 speakers today. So first, I will introduce Andrea Hinwood, and then she will give a keynote address. And then I will give the floor to Martin, who will give a keynote address. And then we have a high-level panel where Nuria will be joining us online, and she will be talking about the air quality work which we have been doing. And then we'll have Dr. Mohamed, Clive, and finally we have Professor Jacqueline. So these are the 6 speakers who will be talking. And then in the end, we will take some question and answers. So we are joined with Anukriti Sharma from India, who will be coordinating us for any online questions from the people who are joining us online. And then if you have more questions from here, we can take them. So with that, I would like to start with our first wonderful keynote speaker. We have Dr. Andrea Hinwood, who serves as the Chief Scientist of the United Nations Environment Program. She is an environmental scientist with expertise in environmental exposure and impact on human health. So I would give the floor to Andrea. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. And first of all, welcome to Nairobi, welcome to UNEP, everybody. And it's fantastic to actually be here. So I find it a bit challenging because you've put me down as an expert. I'm not an expert in citizen science. However, I am one of your most staunch advocates. So on behalf So on behalf of the European Citizen Science Association and the Citizen Science Global Partnership, thank you very much. And I'm really not going to talk very long because, of course, there's an enormous amount of work that is going on in this space. And I think you're keen to hear from them, not from me. So first of all, the days of citizen science being an activity that was nice to have, it was actually a nice way to placate communities into doing something when we were responding to environmental challenges. Those days are actually over. But it's funny, I still actually hear in my range of fora that I attend that citizen science is something that's not trustworthy, it's unreliable, we can't use it. That is no longer the case. And so I want to talk about what we do, what is in place, and how important actually having access to citizen science data, information and knowledge is to actually help us respond to the environmental challenges that we actually have. And I want to be clear, and to standard scientists, citizen science does not replace what I call the gold standard monitoring. It doesn't. It is something that supplements what we do, and it supplements the information base. It's increasingly important for a couple of reasons. It enhances science literacy. It actually enables the delivery of participatory science where non-scientists can engage about a range of topics. It supports and can enhance monitoring networks. It can also provide early warning for issues. For example, in the Australian context, air sensors all around the communities are actually used for early warning for smoke coming from wildfires, for example. It's a great way of engaging in the environment. It's also a great way to actually engage with the people who understand their local environments. Too often, we actually think we understand the environment in a given area and we don't engage with Indigenous, traditional and community members who actually possibly have more information about how we should be going about monitoring the environment. So there are lots of rationale for engaging in citizen science. So this workshop is really timely. And our goal at UNEP is to bring together data generated by citizens to help inform decision makers at local, regional and global scales. And by integrating into maybe national, regional and global networks, the value of the data, information, knowledge gathered via citizen scientists can actually be used to drive action to have real impact. And so, I always use the adage, what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed. And the same thing, what isn't understood is very, very hard to manage. So citizen science via our Global Environmental Monitoring Systems water team, they're over there and they can give you some examples, is a great example. It emphasises the importance of actually having national authorities engaged in this area in managing and having the inputs of citizen science. We also need to talk about promoting the legitimacy of citizen science data, often a criteria or a comment that is made why we shouldn't pursue this area. And I just want to reinforce, it also helps build bridges between those tasked with managing the environment. And in the case of UNEP, in work on citizen science, it can actually help those directly affected by poor or degraded water quality, for example, by building trust between communities and authorities. So UNEP applauds the work of the citizen science community. Thank you for all of your hard work and efforts across portfolios, across issues, across regions, for making the information available for decision making and for people like me to be able to use that. And at the moment, I think you'd all agree, we need all help we can get. So let's actually embrace citizen science, make sure it's used effectively, and make some good decisions on reversing some of the environmental challenges that we currently face. I look forward to hearing all these presentations, and thank you very much, Martin.
Thank you, Andrea. I would like to give the floor to Martin now to please introduce himself and then take over from here.
Okay, if I can bring up the first slide, please. This is where I test the technology. Whilst the slide is coming up, let me just talk to this opening title slide. Never before in our history, never before in our history, have we had the ability through the mobile phone to engage almost everyone on this planet in citizen science projects that research and document the great environmental challenges of our time. And even those without mobile phones, as we found in the South Pacific, can use pen and pencil to gather the data that then somebody else can put on a mobile phone. But we are at a critical point in our history. As citizens, we no longer have the time to stand idly by whilst governments struggle against entrenched interests to deal with the three global catastrophic events of biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change that are costing so many of us our lives. We must recognize that as citizens, major progress in the world has always been driven by the few, who through their persistence against the odds become the many. I want you all to champion and then join the few as we seek to scale up citizen science programs that tackle climate change and pioneer new approaches to understand and reduce unnecessary deaths from air pollution. Do not go away from today's events and do nothing. Look back in 10 years' time and say, I was part of the solution to climate change. I did not look away. I gave my kids a future, able to breathe clean air on a stable world. Who will lead this effort? Let me move on to the second slide. Second slide, yes. The Citizen Science Global Partnership is set to lead with its partners from across the world. 2 global citizen science programs on climate change and air quality will be developed, which will also explore the associated health implications of both. When these programs are a success, we will look to pioneer further programs covering water quality and health as our next target, unless others step into the breach to do that in advance or in partnership with us. We move on to the next slide. The Citizen Science Global Partnership started with small beginnings. This is at UNEA 3, a humble beginnings when we announced our intention to set up the organization. Since then, with UN support and with the UN Science Policy Business support, we have grown to be at the heart of a fundamental shift in how millions of volunteers across our planet can engage in and influence science and our knowledge of the impact we are all having on our planet. But we can do much more than that. By our very actions and by banding together in our millions, we have the power to drive change. Next slide, please. But we can also be much more powerful if we work with and support governments that want to come together through international environmental agreements. That is why the Citizen Science Global Partnership developed its Charter for Citizen Science and Multilateral Environmental Agreements at UNEA 6, and why we are here today. We are arguing and will continue to argue that citizen science should be at the core of implementation programs to deliver the aspirations of multilateral environmental agreements. We are grateful already at UNEA 7 to see this message is being championed by Great Britain and Norway, arguing for the inclusion of citizen science in MEAs. We are grateful for the governments that successfully included citizen science in the CBD agreement, a pioneer in its field. But we need much more than one success. We are grateful for the European Union for funding research into how citizen science can support regulatory policy and being prepared to share the outcomes with the Global South. To the government of Ghana for integrating citizen science into its national statistical programs, and for Fiji to show how citizen science can be used in some of the most remote regions of the world to mitigate environmental issues and support economic activity. Next slide, please. But to be successful, the Charter needs infrastructure to support member states who want to harness citizen science in support of UNEA objectives. That is why the Citizen Science Global Partnership has joined other leaders in the EU to create a dedicated research infrastructure for citizen science that will connect, integrate, and amplify existing and future science efforts whilst optimizing costs and impact. Research infrastructures are facilities that provide resources and services for research communities to conduct research and foster innovation. They avoid duplication of efforts and cut across silos of research, and they bring citizen science into the mainstream of research efforts. Next slide, please. The long-term vision in this infrastructure is that society becomes the infrastructure with access determined by the quality of the contribution, work, or proposals, regardless of whether the person is an academic, independent researcher, hobbyist, or citizen scientist. But whilst that work is important, we have real challenges today that must be tackled, and we do not have time to wait for the emerging research infrastructure. So whilst we move forward for the long term, we must also deal with the here and now. So how do we put in place global citizen science programs at scale on climate change mitigation and air quality? Next slide, please. Well, fortunately, we have pioneer projects to guide us. Pioneers who have explored over 7 years how to set up and run global citizen science programs. Global Mosquito Alert, my first example, began with a small group meeting with the support of UNEP to bring together successful pilot citizen science programs, tracking the movement of mosquito species capable of carrying new tropical diseases into areas of Europe, the USA, and Australia. Today, we have a global program providing a growing level of data to support efforts to tackle tropical diseases carried by mosquitoes. And may I quote a participant at that groundbreaking meeting in Geneva, when the gathered scientists were arguing about which methods to apply for a global program. And remember, scientists will argue forever about the methods to use. A representative from the Global South intervened and said, and I paraphrase, "We need a citizen science program now, today. Just tell us what to do. We have people dying from mosquito-borne disease. We need action now." The hairs on the back of my neck stand up when I recall those words and the urgency it brought to our efforts to set up that program in 2016. And I suggest to you, we are in the same position today with climate change. Next slide, please. The Global Mosquito Alert developed a global dashboard that now provides a blueprint for other potential global programs to follow, and its infrastructure and knowledge is available to reuse. We now know what to do to put global programs in place, and we know what they cost. Let me move to another example, a biodiversity pioneer. This is the Cornell Labs eBird. Next slide, please. A truly remarkable global biodiversity program, growing at the rate of over 20% per annum. People in the remotest parts of the planet are talking about it. 100 million bird observations per year, 1.5 billion observations in total, proving unique knowledge on what is happening to our bird species across the planet in a way traditional science could never have matched. Add in the iNaturalist program, and the two projects now provide the world's largest aggregator of biodiversity information to the Global Biological Information Facility, critical to our understanding on how to tackle the global biodiversity crisis. And I find across the UK and Ireland, where I live, people talking about these programs in a way I never expected, and sharing details on how to download and use the app. And yes, you can take part now yourselves while you're here at UNEA through the iNaturalist Challenge for Biodiversity. Join the Nairobi Biodiversity Challenge. And Ram has already talked a little bit about the challenge. Let's show it works in Nairobi during UNEA. My last example, and next slide, please, is one more pioneer I want to highlight. The COVID Symptom Tracker app developed by King's College London. At the time, the largest health-based citizen science program on the planet. 1 million people joined it in the first week when it was launched. It nearly destroyed the team setting the program up. They were a very small team, and you should have seen their faces. They were haggard at the end of that first week. 4.5 million people took part, daily providing information on the spread of the disease, its changing symptoms, and data weeks ahead of official data sources on the risks from the disease. Reliable scientific data leading to over 20 peer-reviewed papers, but also saving lives, reducing the risk of infection. I know I used it right through COVID, and it affected my family's risk-based decisions at a time I could not access national data sets at a scale and in time for them to be useful to my family to reduce risks of exposure to the disease. So let me go to the next slide. Tackling climate change. And this is one from Australia. So how do we use citizen science to tackle climate change, to lower carbon emissions and prevent catastrophic events such as this one in Australia? At the time, the government were denying that climate change had any impact and any effect on any cause of these great fires. And you can see what the local people said on the right, and I daren't repeat it. Australians are very outspoken. So, scaling citizen science. Next slide, please. We do it by following the route map developed by the Global Mosquito Alert Consortium, scaling essentially 4 successful citizen science pilot programs onto the global stage, using existing citizen science infrastructure modified for a new purpose, applying the UNESCO open science principles and sharing code for tools already developed so that the global expertise of citizen scientists can further enhance its value, applying AI tools and algorithms and techniques to streamline and simplify data collection, validation and aggregation. And yes, we haven't got it all right yet, but by working together, we can attain that takeoff point that the programs I've just outlined have already reached. And we can do it in a shorter time frame by learning the lessons from the early pioneers. And so our new report issued today, a global citizen science program on climate change mitigation, outlines how it can be done, what the costs are, what resources are needed. We can put this program in place at speed, building on 20 million euros of investment in proving citizen science can tackle climate change. We know we need a further 1 to 2 million to make it a success, and global partners prepared to modify and apply core methods to make them applicable across the planet. Next slide, please. And the report illustrates, by focusing on personal carbon footprints, that citizens at scale can tackle more than 30% of all carbon emissions we are all responsible for. And they are some of the most stubborn carbon emissions to reduce. They are the ones that are not going down. And it moves youth from protest to action, and we know it delivers. We've piloted it and proven it. We engage and link citizens to the energy transition. We foster their investments into community energy programs and divert fossil fuel profits back into local communities. We publish the results on a global platform and build momentum for change across the world, showing people it can be done, using a simple carbon labelling scheme to track personal progress as citizens lower their carbon emissions. If I can have the next slide, please. This is a mock-up of what can be done. It isn't in place yet, but we can build on 4 standard solutions which we've identified. 2 of them, Aurora is one and PS Lifestyle is another. Both have mobile apps that can be used to monitor personal carbon emissions. They both provide guidance and advice on how to lower them to net zero. Next slide, please. This is the Aurora scheme. This is the Aurora Energy Tracker app. PS Lifestyle have a similar one, and they both provide examples to citizens on actions to take based on their own personal tracking of their carbon emissions. So this is real action, helping people to drive their own emissions to net zero, linking them to the energy transition, linking their investments into installing renewable energy and driving the profits back into local communities. Next slide, please. And this is a nice example. Aurora illustrates how community energy programs can be linked to personal carbon emission monitoring. They show how communities can take ownership and pride in local energy generation. Already pioneering the first university energy community in Denmark, selling energy to Aarhus University, and owned by the cooks, the cleaners, the students, and the staff. And they all gain benefit and profit from investments they make in the scheme, better than you would get from a bank. The first school-based energy community in Madrid, Palomares School, a working-class school, reducing energy costs by 40 to 50%, using solar energy and replacing gas-powered heating and cooling systems with air source heat pumps. And they raised over 140,000 euros through shares to fund that scheme from a working class community. They never believed they could do it. Next slide, please. Of course, we need to scale renewable energy, but imagine scaling the small scale programs I've talked about across all schools, all universities, all community facilities in the global north and the global south. Yes, we need the large scale capital intensive projects, but these small scale community programs can be more powerful in winning over hearts and minds to accelerate the energy transition and divert profits from the fossil fuel industry back into local communities. And I will keep saying that because it's true. In the global south, the next slide, the possibilities for communities to go from no electric power straight to renewable energy is enormous. It can be undertaken off-grid, as many of my colleagues now know in Kenya. So what next? Let me take the next slide. We have one planet, and you can see it in that dot in the middle, on which to live. Nothing else has been found for 6.4 billion kilometers on which we could survive. So in my mind, citizens of this world must unite to protect our home planet. That is why I am here, why I am so passionate that citizen science must tackle climate change. So for my last slide, let's make it happen. Help us to make it happen. We need you to back us with your knowledge, your funds, your skills, and your passions. We can do this. We can look back in 10 years' time and say, I tackled climate change. I gave my kids a future. I gave them clean air and a stable world. Please join us. Thank you very much. After that, I'd like to move on now and invite Nuria to talk about the air quality ideas and the air quality initiatives, and to bring the second set of slides on the screen, please. So over to Nuria, and here come the slides. The floor is yours, Nuria.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Martin, and thank you everyone for listening today. Next slide, please. We know that air quality is causing many deaths. In 2021, next slide, please. It caused over 1 million deaths globally, including also children under 5 years old. And we know that more than 36% of the world's population is exposed to harmful levels of PM2.5. Next slide. We also know in this report recently published by the Clean Air Fund that countries suffering from the worst air pollution are not the ones accessing for funding for air quality solutions, and that those countries will be better positioned to access for funding if they had air quality data. Next slide. If we look at the map, we can see that currently 71 national governments are not monitoring air pollution and investing in air quality monitoring programs will help the health of nearly 1 billion people. Next slide, please. We believe and we know and we have already demonstrated that citizen science can provide air quality data, can provide reliable air quality data. And the citizen science and air quality community of practice is here to join and provide a forum for many initiatives and air quality practitioners and citizen science practitioners to join efforts in support of clean air and public health policies. Next slide. We offer a starter pack that can enable communities, civic organizations, and public authorities to launch and sustain citizen science air quality observatories. The technology and the methodologies are already in place, and they come from global partners. We are focusing on resilience, providing data that can close monitoring gaps in countries with limited infrastructure, and providing harmonized data that can contribute to the national and international data sets. Sustainable solutions based on low-cost, scalable air quality monitoring networks and validation algorithms that can provide data towards the policy pathways and evidence. And also that data it's interoperable, following fair and care data, and increasing public support and participation in policies. We have a 3-year roadmap, and today we are asking people for expressions of interest to join us in this roadmap to provide air quality to everyone, everywhere. Next slide, please. There are already examples of citizen science, and I bring here just one from Nairobi, where they are already monitoring air quality using low-cost sensors and validated data that are offering to municipalities and also to communities. But they are not only bringing data, they are already bringing action in the way of, for example, dust filters to schools and masks to protect vulnerable population. Next slide, please. But it was well said today. Citizen science here is not to replace air quality monitoring, official air quality monitoring. It's here to multiply its impact. Nairobi County is already offering data on air quality, but when institutional and communities join efforts, we can be much more effective. Next slide, please. So as I said, inside the Citizen Science Global Partnership, we are now opening this call for expressions of interest of joining the Citizen Science Air Quality community. You can scan the QR code to join us and learn more about what are we doing and collaborate with us and let us know also about your initiatives or your willingness to create an initiative. And also you will find me at UNEP 7 from the 6th to 12th December, and you will find many of my colleagues today at the room. So please approach them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nuria. What I'd like to do now, with Ram's approval, is to give each of the panelists a few minutes to speak about their perception of where we are with citizen science, starting with the major groups. And then we're going to move into a Q&A section for the last 30 minutes or so. So this is a chance for everybody in the room and everybody online to engage in the discussion and the debate. And we've already seen in UNEP 7 that the member states are involved in a debate about citizen science and what it means, and that we still have a long way to go to get member states to understand how we can help, how we can support what they're trying to do through UNEP resolutions. So if I may go to my colleague on the right from Youth, the future for youth and children, to give you his views on citizen science. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. My name is Clive Donley, Global Coordinator to the Children and Youth Major Group. Thank you, colleagues, and good morning, everyone. My name is Clive Donnelly, Global Coordinator to the Children and Youth Major Group, and also the co-chair of UNEP's group of friends, alongside the DPR of the Netherlands. Just on this topic, basically, I want to quickly touch on the normative role of UNEP and also reflecting the aspects of environmental governance and policies and how citizen science currently is continuing to enrich the process. And quickly, just reflecting on the UNEP's normative role set through various international standards and norms, we already see that citizen science continues to play a critical role in enhancing collective efforts in keeping the environment under review. And when we reflect on various long outstanding research or long outstanding traditional outcome of expertise in science, you find that this is a slow moving process, and it sometimes excludes the realities of marginalized voices. And this is how citizen science comes in to shift this epistemic divide, and mostly trying to redistribute the knowledge gap, mostly trying to see how citizen science can be able to bridge the gap in tackling the triple planetary crisis or the emerging global challenges. Secondly, the aspect of strengthening multi-led accountability mechanism plays also a vital role, and this is also enhanced through strengthening geographical comprehensive approaches like data information settings, and this is how it continues to refine and complement policies. As an example, all over the world, we're seeing young people are taking actions, for example, through Fridays for Future, which is a youth-led movement trying to strengthen or put leaders under accountability and to enforce governance approaches in terms of tackling climate change and inequalities. And currently, when you also check on the areas of law and how issues of justice is being incorporated, you find this is how citizen science also complements such processes and be able to bring in refined approaches on how these issues on emerging environmental issues can be able to be tackled. When you focus on multilateral environmental agreements, like the issues of convention, there's also slightly some fragmentation in terms of how environmental law or how the MEAs can be able to complement people's approaches in terms of also incorporating the assessment reports, for example, the flagship and assessment reports of UNEP. And this is how citizen science can also be able to accelerate the operationalization of the participatory of the governance scale. And just this week or next week, we'll be seeing UNEP will be launching the GEO report. And recently, during the Youth Environment Assembly, we were able to have a session with young people discussing also on how the GEO report, the assessment report, can be able to be strengthened by incorporating youth views. And through this, we can be able to co-design the monitoring protocols where citizens can be part of the policy cycle and be able to complement the evolving policy cycles while also addressing emerging environmental issues. And lastly, on how citizen science can be able to strengthen policy, we check on the issues of high precision and adaptability through high resolution of data. When you check on the aspects of the traditional monitoring system, like traditional monitoring system are temporarily limited, and citizen science can be able to mobilize thousands of observers producing dense and granular data sets that can be able to comprehend these areas. And these data sets continue to strengthen the aspects of environmental governance, for example, through the state of environmental reports, through national adaptation gaps. And it also can able to foster and integrate technology through youth and governance mechanism. The platforms like the GIS platforms, sensor AI enabled biodiversity monitoring, also continues to get data sets from communities. And this is how this aspect or narrative continues to complement the environmental governance and policy mechanism. And this is why we're advocating for a more inclusive platform, more people-centered approaches that complements policy and also ensures citizen science remains central and part of the solutions. Now, as the negotiations are ongoing, from time to time, we hear member states are also mentioning the aspect of citizen science, and this also shows the critical role that major groups and DRCPs have been able to push their positions during the intersessional period, calling for citizen science to be able to be part of the complementary approach when it comes to negotiations, implementation, and also the aspect of stock taking of these solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clive. And I'm reminded of a young lad in a disadvantaged community in a rundown part of Sheffield in the north of England, who got involved in a citizen science program and was asked to comment on what it meant to him. And he said it in his interview, and I can't do his Yorkshire accent, but it was something along the lines of, "I just didn't know I could do science. Now I do. Now I can be part of the change in the community. I can lead." And so it's not just citizen science, it's not just for the middle classes, it's for everybody. It's for the indigenous populations, it's for the disadvantaged communities, it's for the youth in our community. They can all get involved. And on that point, I hand over to Mohamed from the Scientific and Technological Major Group for his thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. This is Mohamed Abdelraouf, Gulf Research Center, Science and Technology Focal Point at UNEP. I will be very brief. I will focus on a few points, just importance and some insights on citizen science. Also, the role of major group of science and technology that played a role since the establishment of citizen science, and also some insights about importance of data collected through citizen science. So citizen science in principle is a practice of public participation in scientific research where people from all walks of life contribute, collaborate, and assist professional scientists. So this means that we are speaking about all people. So we're speaking about the farmers, we're speaking about the indigenous people, we're speaking about youth, women. So any citizen can take part and be part of the citizen science projects. It has many benefits. It will have a very density of data because they are involved a large number of people, large number of areas, covering large geographical areas. Some are difficult areas to reach also. So this is an added merit. And they also can be part of the analyzing and also shaping the research project, because they already know the problems in these areas, in these remote areas, in these indigenous communities, and so on. So it brings everyone on board, like exactly Martin said, that young youth have just said. I just wanted also to say that citizen science plays an important role in science policy interface. We are speaking here at the global level at UNEP in many resolutions. Citizen science have been proposed by some countries and still opposed by other countries. This is our fight to continue. But if we are speaking about science policy interface, so citizen science is a solution, because citizen science provides extensive local data for evidence-based decision. And this will enhance the public trust and engagement in scientific and policy-making process. So this is a participatory approach that really bridges the gap between expert knowledge and the community needs. So I don't see any other tool that can work better for science policy interface, bringing the community needs on each individual village, rural area, remote area, and bring it to the global policy and decision making only through citizen science. Citizen science in this way contributes to a more robust and democratic policy landscape through several key mechanisms. Extended data collection, so volunteers from citizens can gather data over vast geographical areas, a long time period that would be impossible for professional scientists to collect. COVID example that was mentioned is a clear example, because during extreme events, during lockdowns, what else than citizen science can bring these data? Incorporate local and indigenous knowledge. And here is an important point. Maybe this is would be an article that we can think of doing later, because I think citizen science can help, because we are speaking about Western science, we're speaking about indigenous knowledge, and always like two different sets of knowledge. But citizen science can bring those together in a very nice way, because if you are looking for indigenous knowledge, indigenous science, traditional knowledge, so you incorporate the indigenous people, indigenous local people, different people can bring you the indigenous and traditional knowledge, and this can be incorporated in scientific research. And this is an excellent way to benefit from both Western science and indigenous science. And of course, it plays an important role in building the trust, because if you participate in this, you own the process. And if you own the process, it feels like your own, you understand the benefits, and it also raises the awareness. It acts as an education for everyone. So it has a lot of benefits. And the final benefit, it changes the behavior. Because if you educate people, normal people, remote people, village people, about basic science, then the behavior can be changed, especially in environmental issues where we need this behavioral change. And of course, it plays an important role in identification of new problems, because sometimes up-down is not really bringing all the information, but sometimes working from bottom up brings community problems and needs, so it plays an important role. I just wanted to mention that we have been very happy that science and technology have been cooperating since 2017, when citizen science came, and the first time we included citizen science in our statement and many other statements and interventions over the past few years. And this is the role of Science and Technology Measure Group, is to bring citizen science as a vital tool to complement traditional resources and influence policy formulation on global level, and also increase awareness, and finally foster collaboration between various stakeholders. So Science and Technology Measure Group acts as an advocate and facilitator for mainstreaming citizen science into the global governance framework, making the process more inclusive, transparent, and evidence-based. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohamed. Now, we're going to bring in an extra speaker here, because we have the co-chair of Citizen Science Africa. And I want to give him the floor to talk a little bit about the YOMA scheme, because it's another nice example of bringing youth into citizen science. So over to Peter from Lagos University in Nigeria.
Thank you, Martin. My name is Peter Elias. I'm the co-chair of CitizenScience Africa Association. And talking about the role of youth in advancing citizen science is very, very key. As for us, as an association, recognizing the fact that youth constitutes more than 40% of the African population, we are leveraging that population and the energy that that population brings when it comes to doing citizen science. So we've been partnered with YOMA since 2023 to galvanize the energy of the young people to use technology and social media to collect data about their communities. And the experience they have gathered has strengthened their ability to do most of the things we're talking about, whether it's in area of biodiversity, climate change, or in air quality. And that partnership has really supported the youth to interact with their counterparts globally. Some of our youth were in Planet Institute in France last year, and they presented their idea and became the best globally. This year, again, some of our youth across Africa participated in the SDG Solution Challenge at the University of Geneva. And I think the participants from Nairobi did very well in presenting what they are doing around the environment, around nature. So I think that the major stakeholders group should consider supporting such initiative that will help young people to continue to use their youthful energy in advanced citizen science and contributed to the major issues plaguing the world today. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Before I hand over to Jackie, I'd also like to make one other comment about what I saw in the Yeoman scheme, is that it gave youth of Africa new skills almost like an assembly line, building up confidence and skills that eventually leads to many of them gaining work. So they got accreditation as they went through the process. And I think that was really, really important. And millions are taking part in the Yeoman scheme, not all on the environmental side, but the Yeoman scheme is wider than just environment. But it's a major, major success in Africa, and it's a major stepping stone for many youth, many young people in Africa to finally gain the skills they need to get into work. And that's a major achievement. I'm now going to ask Jackie, who's got the difficult job of wrapping up, and also to comment, I think, on the Indigenous link with citizen science, and you'll have your own unique ability there. And also just to say, we've also put around some summary documents and cards where you can use to link up with some of the initiatives we've been talking about. Over to you, Jackie.
Thank you, Martin. So it's a fantastic chance, I think, to take a little bit of a step back and really ask ourselves why citizen science has not got itself right at the forefront. Because when we started this program, when I came to UNEP, but even when I was running the European Environment Agency, we put citizen science right at the core of regulation. And, you know, to give them their credit, the European Commission said, wow, this is one of Jackie's pet projects, but okay, we'll go with it. And here we are 25 years later, and really one of the backbones in European legislation is having those networks operating. So I'm looking at this long journey and wondering and asking myself, why is it we haven't been more pervasive? Why are we not in everybody's thinking, every policy making thinking? I want to fast forward to now, because you've heard today so many great examples, but I take on note what Andrea said, very important, that citizen science sits alongside the formal monitoring, reporting and verification. So we still have a long journey to go. And what does it take to fill the gap? So I think initiatives in Africa particularly are beginning to really open the door to this. So I want to just reflect on a couple of examples here. In Kenya, they're part of a UN program called the Economics of Ecosystems and Biodiversity, but it's about transforming food systems in the face of climate change. So we have run an experiment with the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Many of you will have heard about natural capital accounting, where we do a lot of work around the world on water, on biodiversity, and so on and so forth. But it is slow going. The World Bank, you know, is moving ahead. But to get things into the official statistics, the system of national accounts is a big, heavy lift. And it's just not possible at the level that countries want to make decisions to equip them with the evidence. So we undertook an experiment this year with an organization called Shujaz. Those of you who are Kenyan will know it. It's the largest magazine comic in the world. They have a television channel now, and they reach 60 to 75% of all young people in Kenya. These are millions. This is at least 11 million people who touch Shujaz every day. So we ran the experiment. We designed surveys around very critical parts of climate, localized climate, and natural capital. We put it to the Wakirius, which is the equivalent of citizen science. And within 1 week, we got 3,000 responses with a KNBS designed survey. But more than that, we got localized information about how climate is working at that very local level. We have 800,000 entrepreneurs who are also part of that network feeding in, again, young people. And the great news is that as a result of this sort of interaction with the official arm of government and with the county governments, we now have 250, I'm going to call them youth clubs, youth science, citizen science clubs, who meet every Friday physically, and they talk about what's the information and data that counties need to make the right kinds of decisions. So I see that there's another wave of, I'm not even going to call it citizen science in a way, it's how young people are grabbing data and information and making it relevant. So yes, we have a bit of a fight on our hands because there's pushback in some parts of the world about whether we want to listen to citizen-generated information coming in, but I don't see we can stop it. It's like a tsunami. So what I wanted to do was to really ask all of you, as you walk around in UNEA 7, just to be alert to the fact that in the major groups and stakeholders, but in every delegation, there are people who want to have the knowledge that citizens' information, that it is out there, that we're finding ways, as Martin has said, we've got great guidance, we've got ways which we can set up networks that will work, that have been tested, and that we can genuinely put things on the table in front of the various parties. The final piece of this for me is that you make it when Treasury asks for the data. And last week, Kenyan Treasury asked to have a report which talks about the valuation of nature using the data that we have been able to collect in this sort of novel experiment. So please look at Shujaz, by the way, Curious and Mesh and that. We have certification schemes, but a lot of young people don't really want certificates. They just want recognition from their peer groups. So they're not looking for vast payment. What they're looking for is to be recognized as part of the solution, not just always being put outside. So think about citizens. They're often misrecognized in phrases like participation. Participation is you turned up and you tick the box. No, we want to recognize, we want recognition participation, and that's actually what citizen science in this century should look like. It is real participation where you're recognized for who you are and who you represent. So the shift should really be to knock down the barriers. We've got some fantastic programs. You've seen them here. You're here, and we're all around. I really hope that we can have a conversation now that will continue out of this door for the next 2 weeks and that you take it home with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The analogy of a tsunami is truly on target. If I go back to 2013, when the European Citizen Science Association got set up, the European Union mentioned citizen science once in all its documentation. Now it's a major part of their EU Horizon research program, and it's talked about throughout the European Union. So the transition has started. It will move at different speeds in different countries, but it is unstoppable. And that's the thing that has kept me involved in this program for all that time, because the scale and the speed with which it is moving now is awe-inspiring. So on that point, I'm going to hand over to Anukriti to try to bring in first some questions from the people online who we can't see, but are nevertheless an important part of today's proceedings. So I'm hoping the technology works, and over to you, Anukriti. And then we'll ask panelists to respond.
Thank you so much, Martin. And thank you.
And make sure you speak up, Anukriti, be bold.
Okay, I hope I'm audible right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
amazing.
you are.
So firstly, thank you all for a thoughtful conversation. And I am sure that today's exchange highlighted something very important. It's when communities and policymakers engage as partners, the quality of both science and governance improves. So I will not bore anyone with my own thoughts. We have collected a lot of questions from participants who expressed interest in our session, and I'll read a selection of them now for anyone from the panel to address. So on to the first question. It is from Sharma, who is a professor at the Department of Forestry at Mizoram University in India. His question is, how can we ensure that citizen science generated data attains a level of legitimacy that is comparable to data collected by government statistical officers so that it can be recognized and treated as legally binding? So over to the panel members, if anybody wants to take this question up.
Can I ask Andrea to start with that one, and then perhaps if Jackie can follow, because I can see Jackie is bursting to respond as well.
I think Jackie will probably have a better response than me, but this is really a challenging question when you're in a regulatory environment. Why? You need to have your gold standard monitoring against which you measure environmental change in a regulatory setting, i.e. I have established a particular concentration of a pollutant in water and I need to have a reliable method. Why? When you go to court, you actually have to say that this data has been gathered in that way, right? However, what is changing with citizen science is this issue of density of monitoring and the sheer scale of networks which enable you to use other ways of actually interpolating your data. So in a regulatory setting, it can be problematic, but it also can be used. In terms of getting legitimacy, though, the way to do this, and I think there are many examples here in Africa, but there are also examples in other jurisdictions, is where citizen scientists work with national governments and it is picked up in the way that they work. So again, in my past role, citizen science networks were actually also integrated with the national government networks, and hence it was integrated data which can be used and therefore legitimate. So I think that probably is a key, and Jackie will answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring Jackie in a second, but let me tell you one story I had, and it's from Australia. Sitting down with one of the longest running water quality citizen science programs that Australia pioneered. And the water company that were involved in it complained to me that the problem with citizen science is it's generated too much data. And I need to validate all that data. And how do I validate it? And my simple question back to them was, well, who is providing you with the data? And they said, well, actually, most of it is our retired employees. So why don't you ask your retired employees to set up their own data validation system and stop worrying about validating your data through the conventional way? Think outside the box. And that's part of the problem we've got. And when you come to data validation with citizen science, it's recognizing you need to change the way you do things. So Jackie, over to you.
I'm going to just take a step away. So there, for those of you who are interested in carbon markets, carbon crediting, and so on, there is now a big push to recognize the role of farmers as being able to use their good efforts on the ground to sequester carbon. Okay, so now we're talking about millions of people who could potentially be involved. But what we don't want to do is to fall into the trap of just having any old data, any old ad hoc, etc. So there is a halfway house, we were talking about it yesterday, where farmers who actually are really citizen scientists, when you think about it, they're applying knowledge every day they go out in the field. They may not classify that, to have not just simple ways of measuring, but very coherent, calibrated and validated ways which are affordable and accessible. So here is exactly what Andrea said. We need to have more programs where we need that volume, where we need that local context to give, let's say, a better integrity in things which are requiring it. And I think the carbon markets are exactly the place where we can see the possibility of both funding as well as the need for local citizen-generated data. So I'm not saying that health isn't important, absolutely. Early surveillance, absolutely. But we have an enormous task ahead of us in terms of climate change and really thinking about this. So I'm encouraged by what's happening within the European Union, within the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. But I think we need to help as a community to make it worthwhile that people feel that if they do collect information, they go through a third-party validation of those data, that it's going to actually create traction in the legislation. So a lot of work still to be done, but I think that's where we are now with some of these programs, reaching out to groups who wouldn't call themselves citizen scientists.
Let me bring in some more questions. I'm going to cut across you, Anukriti. I'm going to ask for questions from in the room now to give people a chance here. Then we'll come back to you, Anukriti, for the next one from the online people. So are there questions from within the room? Who put their hand up first, Rab? At the end of the table? Yes. Yeah. Camilla.
Thank you. It's been a great session, this. I've learned a lot. In the negotiations, they're struggling with wording, I think. And so we've got informals coming up, I think, in there, looking at what wording could satisfy the naysayers. So, you know, you're doing really well. Lots of people are doing really well across lots of different resolutions, trying to get citizen science as a term into the legal texts. But then immediately it's like, nope, delete, nope, delete, delete from quite a lot of countries, not just 2 or 3, a lot of countries. So I think the EU put forward a phraseology which was science, comma, including citizen science. But there are other words as well that have been battered around, like participatory science, including citizens, to soften it a bit, maybe. So have you got any words? So they're just going to have to battle it out between them, probably.
Can I ask anybody on the panel to volunteer for this one? Mohamed.
Yeah, we can use softened language, but I think it's fair enough to use. I think this is fair enough for governments also. So let's try to push for a validated citizen science approaches or methods. So validated is the important one for governments. Let's hope.
Yeah, and you can find different definitions in both the US legislation on citizen science, in the UN Statistics Division on citizen science. So they do exist. Maybe the negotiators here haven't seen them, haven't quite understood them. Yeah. Maybe we haven't briefed them properly. So yes, we can do something to put that right, because it does exist. IUCN have recently set up a citizen science cohort as well, and they have definitions. And so, you know, that's not an insurmountable problem. The critical thing I think we have to get across to people is this is here to help you. We're not trying to hinder you. We're trying to help you deliver the things you say you want, with a very, very powerful cohort of people that can get behind you. But you have to do it in a different way. You need new skill sets. You need common programs to be able to do this. And if you read the charter, it says we actually need a UN group to focus on citizen science to help the member states understand what it is and how they can deliver it. Because until we get that understanding, some countries will still see it as something that is not delivering adequate data quality, which is no longer the case. So we have a few messages. But let me not fill the floor.
Martin, can I just say, though, we do have it formally. So the WHO, the World Bank and others in the data for SDGs, they've actually also adopted citizen-generated data. So, you know, let's start having a proliferation of words, but that's already enshrined in the WHO and some of those places as well. So, yeah.
Sorry, Martin, information. Yeah.
Over to Peter.
Thank you. Since 2023, I've been involved in the UN expert group on collaborative on citizen data. And one of the things we have done in that document is to clarify the concept of citizen data, talking about what it can accomplish, and of course, the various dimensions and how it can contribute to filling the gap in data. Because the important thing is that there's gap in data, which everybody acknowledges. The official statistics is no longer able to fill those gaps. And so we need non-traditional data sources, which citizen data is the role that data is contributing. So the issue of definition or nomenclature and all those things would, as an evolving whatever, will be refined as we progress. And that's what we have done in the collaborative. So if you are able to go to the UN Statistical Division website, you see the collaborative on citizen data, where you can read a lot about some of the things that we have done in trying to refine the definition of citizen data for everybody concession. Thank you.
Yeah, I quickly wanted to add one more thing. When I initially told you about CSGP, we have 6 regional associations. You see 5 of them use the term citizen science, but 1 of them is not using. You remember which one is that? Anyone? Yes, can you please say it aloud?
It's called Association of Participatory Sciences.
Yes, so this is the American association. This was earlier named as Citizen Science Association, CSA. Now they changed it to Association for Promoting the Participatory Sciences. So they are using the term participatory sciences. And I just want to say that although the concept remains the same, but we can use the term participatory sciences instead of citizen science in case some people feel more comfortable with it. Thank you.
Okay, let me go back to Anukriti, please, and the next question, please, from the online delegates. No, I'd like to go to get the online because they always get forgotten otherwise.
All right, thank you so much, Martin. So the next question is something that I also have very commonly come across, especially when it comes to people who are still learning about citizen science. So I think it would be good to address it. It's from Vincent from Kenya. He's asking, who owns the data collected through citizen science?
Who owns the data? Now, there's a question for all of us to consider. Who wants to start the process? Any volunteers?
Okay, there are very, very well described ethical ways. When you collect data, you have to be very, very clearly advised as to what will happen to those data and who will use it in the first instance. If you are concerned about private data, personal private data, then we are, under the GPDR, I have to use that phrase, we are all very, very well aware that when it comes to people data, those data have to be protected and anonymized and so on. But my stand has always been, if you're running it with public money, it has to be for the public. It's as simple as that. So if I receive a fund from a research grant or from a county or whomever, it's from the public purse, then everybody sees it. And you collect it on that behalf. But you have to do the paperwork at the beginning so people understand the conditions under which they're collecting data.
Peter wants to.
Yes, just to add that, as Martin showed earlier, there are a number of citizen infrastructure being developed, which are highly collaborative in terms of the guidance for the data collection, data ownership, data use, and of course, dissemination. So once the process and the data infrastructure is collectively owned, it gives access to everybody who is involved in the data ecosystem, whether you're a data producer or a data user. And that's why increasingly there's campaign in the open science community to ensure that the infrastructure being developed in the global north and being used to collect data in the global south are used in such a way that the global south community also have control over the ownership of the data. Because I know that many national governments are worried that when you collect data about their community, about their people, where is the data stored? But with this inclusion in the data ownership structure, I think that fear should no longer be.
Yeah, I just add one anecdote before I come to the next question from the room. And that was during the COVID pandemic in the UK government tried to set up an app for people to report on the disease symptoms and the actuality of where the disease outbreaks were. That app completely failed. And the reason it failed was people were reluctant to share health data with their government. They were happy, however, to share it with King's College London, who can then anonymize the data and share the outputs with the government. So here's a nice example of partnership where there is an inbuilt trust, if you like, in the academic community that may not be there with every government, but nevertheless, you can find a way to bring the two together. On that point now, I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask a question from the floor at the far end.
Thank you, sir. Thank you also to the chief scientist of UNEP and other speakers for the elaboration. I just want to state this, and maybe the speakers can answer because this has yet been deeply discussed. So, for example, citizen science is useful, for example, for monitoring pollution that is visible in the environment and also in products that people consume. Which obviously can support the implementation of MEAs, like, for example, Minamata Convention on Mercury. So, because we can use citizen science to protect to monitor the mercury pollution across products and ecosystems. But it's just sometimes citizens that are capturing this pollution, they are being criminalized. And when they are, let's say, submitting an online report to the government platform, to any whistleblowing or whatsoever, they are being criminalized also, and they face legal repercussions. So I think we should also discuss about the legal protection of the citizens who are advocating for the protection of environment from pollution using citizen science, because we talk about the data here, the management, the ownership, but we need to talk more about the justice side of this. So I think that's all. Thank you, sir.
Again, I'll look to the panelists to give their views, and then I'll give you a few thoughts of my own to wrap up the question and answer session from the room and then move back online. Do I hear a volunteer?
Yeah, so I can quickly answer. I will say that the European Citizen Science Association have given one document called 10 Principles of Citizen Science. So if you read that, and in most of the places, you will find that the principles clearly mention about protection of all similar issues. And the legal repercussion and all these things come if the platform is not responsible enough. But what we have seen is that all the platforms which are famous student people are using them, they have the inbuilt structure to take care of all such issues. So for example, the app iNaturalist, which is used, they have put in place all the necessary mechanism to ensure how and when the sensitive data is hidden, or it is kind of like masked, so that similar issues do not happen. So I believe, just like any other thing, here comes the responsibility of the initiators of the program or the tools, that they make sure that all the principles of citizen science are maintained. And from our experience, we are seen that all the citizen science practitioners have been following those principles, and in that case, it has been taken care of.
Yeah, and the comment I wanted to make was, if you go back to the Charter on Citizen Science and MEAs, it specifically addresses that issue and suggests to the member states that they should build into the MEA process a right for citizens to collect data, in the same way the Aarhus Convention makes provision of a rights for citizens to receive environmental data. And so if you look at the Charter, it was very much about trying to create a framework within which citizen science could prosper, because I am very much aware of the pressure that exists in some member states to suppress the data that citizen science are collecting. And it isn't just in the usual suspects. There's a really good example from the USA where the courts and the criminalization processes affected water quality collection. So it is a common issue, and it does need to be addressed. So back to you, Anukriti, for another question online, please.
Thank you so much. Nuria has her hand up, so I'm wondering if you wanted to add something.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a success example on the criminalization. In Cambodia, there are citizen initiatives collecting data on deforestation. This is a very specific country, and some of the families were persecuted, and now the initiative that has been collecting this data has been able to repatriate these families in Australia. So initiatives on citizen science are supporting people collecting the data.
Yeah, could I just add, I was also aware of a really nice example where youth was involved in monitoring deforestation in Indonesia, all around the world. And they were using satellite photography and hexagons, and each student was given one side of a hexagon, and they made sure that the other student they were negotiating with the next hexagon came from a different country. So can you imagine the benefit that was coming from that educational program? And all the data they collected on illegal logging was then passed to the authorities in Indonesia to take action. So that got you around some of those problems that you're talking about, of the people reporting the incidents in the countries involved being then targeted in one way or another. It was done remotely, and then the professionals managed it on the ground. I think I am going to have to draw a close at that point, because we were asked to finish just before the 1:30 deadline. There is some food and drink outside. Please enjoy. Please carry on the conversation. And could you all give a round of applause to all the panelists, please?
Before we close, here are some of the announcements. So number one, I would like to thank all the participants who have joined online. We had more participation on the online than what we have on the room. So thank you very much. Thanks to all the speakers, all the participants. Here's the QR code for the report, which has been released just now. So you are the first one to get access to this report on the citizen science and climate change mitigation. Our team will be there on the Citizen Science and Youth booth, which is there in front of the press room at the ground floor. So you can meet us at 2 p.m. there, and we can have more conversation while we are there. And you can access the QR code on the Nairobi Biodiversity Challenge there. And I would like all the panelists to please release the report here. So we have some printouts here. So maybe you can take one photo here and then we can get it outside.
Please.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.